All right, today we are going to crack open the source code of a billionaire's mind. We're talking about the Ray Dalio Rule. And this isn't some secret genius formula. It's actually an operating system for making decisions that's built on a pretty brutal, systematic process of confronting failure. It's a whole philosophy that turns painful mistakes into an unbeatable competitive edge, all because it's laser-focused on one thing: the truth.
In 1982, Ray Dalio made a mistake so catastrophic it nearly destroyed his investment fund, forcing him to lay off almost every employee. I mean, think about that. This wasn't just a bad bet. It was a full-blown existential crisis. This was a moment where a truly brilliant mind had to face the terrifying reality that his own judgment, the very thing he built his entire career on, was just profoundly, devastatingly wrong. He had to fire people who trusted him. He had to borrow money from his dad just to pay his family's bills. This single moment of absolute professional ruin, it became the crucible for everything that came next. This is the genesis story of a rule that would go on to build an empire.
So how in the world did he go from that, borrowing money from his dad, to running one of the biggest hedge funds on the planet? It definitely wasn't magic. It was a process, and we're going to follow that exact roadmap. We'll start with that catastrophic mistake. Then we'll get into the simple but powerful formula he found in the wreckage: pain, reflection, and progress. From there, we'll see how he built that into the radical truth system, put it into action with his Idea Meritocracy, and finally, we'll look at the insane results in the big lesson here: evolve or be broken.
Okay, let's dive into that first part, the catastrophic mistake. We really need to understand how this failure forged a whole new path for him. Because look, it's one thing to be wrong. It's a whole other thing to be so publicly, so confidently, and so catastrophically wrong that you have to fire nearly everyone who believed in you. This wasn't just about losing money. It was a personal failure that completely shattered his confidence and forced him to rewire his entire approach to reality itself.
So here's what happened. In the early 80s, Dalio looks at all the data and becomes absolutely convinced that a global debt crisis is about to tank the US economy. And he wasn't quiet about it, not at all. He went on TV, he testified before Congress, he publicly staked his entire fund, Bridgewater Associates, on this one prediction. He was sure he was right. But the market, the ultimate truth teller, it had other plans. The economy didn't collapse. In fact, the US entered one of the strongest bull markets in its history. So Dalio wasn't just wrong, he was spectacularly, publicly wrong, and he lost nearly everything.
And this right here, this is the pivot point. I mean, think about it. Most people in that situation, they blame the market, the government, some unforeseeable event. It's just a natural defense mechanism, right? But Dalio, he did the exact opposite. He looked inward, and he had this incredibly painful realization. The problem wasn't the market. The problem was his own arrogance, his own ego. That emotional need to be the smartest guy in the room had literally blinded him to what was really happening. And facing that, confronting himself, that was the critical first step. He had to accept that his greatest enemy wasn't out there somewhere. It was inside his own head.
So out of the ashes of that failure, he forged his core operating formula: pain, reflection, and progress. He had this breakthrough where he realized that the immense pain he was feeling, it wasn't just something to suffer through, it was a signal. It was reality screaming at him, "Hey, you are wrong. Your understanding is incomplete." And instead of just ignoring that signal, he decided to build an entire system around it, a simple 3-step loop that would become the engine for everything that came next.
The whole process starts right here with pain. Now, for most of us, right, pain is a negative. It's something we avoid, we run from. But Dalio completely reframed it. For him, pain is just feedback. That's it. It's an objective signal from reality telling you that one of your beliefs is out of sync with how the world actually works. So whether it's a bad investment, a tough conversation, a project that just goes sideways, that sting of pain is basically a big red flag. It's a notification that says, hey, pay attention, there is something to learn here. The trick is not to let your ego jump in and defend itself, but to actually get curious about the pain.
Okay, but just feeling the pain isn't enough. I mean, on its own, that's just suffering, right? It has to be paired with reflection. We're talking deep, honest, systematic reflection. This means you got to move past the emotion and start asking the hard questions. Why exactly did this happen? What was the flawed assumption I made? What blind spot did my ego create that stopped me from seeing the truth? And this can't be some pity party. It has to be like a scientist looking at data, just cold, detached objectivity, searching for the root cause.
And when you combine those two, boom, you get progress. Pain plus reflection
equals progress. This is the engine of evolution. It's a feedback loop. You take that raw emotional signal from a mistake, you hit it with objective, logical analysis, and you come out the other side with a new, more accurate picture of reality. You literally level up. You evolve. And this simple little equation, this became the foundation for how Dalio rebuilt not just his company, but his entire way of seeing the world.
But Dalio realized this personal formula, this little internal loop, it wasn't enough. If he wanted to build a truly great organization, he had to scale it. He had to build an entire culture that ran on this principle. He needed a system that would force everyone, and I mean everyone, including himself, to get past their egos and face the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it was. He called this the radical truth system, and its main target was that one thing that gets in the way of all progress, the human ego. So what exactly is radical truth? At its core, it's the belief that the only way to be consistently successful is through unfiltered honesty and objectivity. It's about creating a culture where the truth is actually valued more than people's feelings, a place where everyone isn't just allowed, but is required to challenge each other's thinking, no matter what their job title is. The goal is super simple, really. Make sure facts beat ego and replace subjective opinions with objective, stress-tested ideas.
And he built this whole system on 3 really powerful pillars. First up is radical transparency. This means pretty much everything is out in the open. Meetings are recorded, critiques are public, it gets rid of all the back-channel gossip and forces issues into the light. Now, that transparency makes the second pillar possible, creating an idea meritocracy. This is just an environment where the best ideas win, period. It doesn't matter who they come from, it's about logic, not rank. And the third pillar is what makes it all hold together. Systematic depersonalization. This is a commitment from everyone to treat criticism not as a personal attack, but as just another piece of valuable data in the hunt for the truth.
All right, so in idea meritocracy, this all sounds great in theory, right? But how do you actually make it work day to day? How do you stop it from just turning into a brutal, chaotic free-for-all? Well, Dalio knew that philosophy wasn't enough. He needed concrete, actionable systems to make these principles real. And this is where his genius for engineering a culture really shines.
And here it is, the absolute cornerstone of the idea meritocracy, believability-weighted decision making. Think about it. In most companies, whose opinion matters most? The highest paid person, right? The boss. But at Bridgewater, an opinion's weight is determined by that person's believability. And that's a score based on 2 simple things: their proven track record of being right about that topic, and how well they can explain the logic behind their thinking. This is so radical. It means if the CEO has a terrible track record on tech investments and some junior engineer has a killer one, that engineer's opinion will mathematically carry more weight. It's a system designed to get the best answer, not just to please the boss.
Okay, let's make this super practical. Look at this example. Imagine we're deciding on a new tech investment. You've got 3 people in the room. You have an expert engineer. She has a proven track record here, so her believability score is a 9 out of 10. Then you've got a marketing manager, smart but less experienced in this specific area, so maybe a 4 out of 10. And finally, a new hire. Their opinion is valued, but it's untested, so they get a 2 out of 10. Now, in a normal meeting, this could just be a stalemate, right? But in this system, the engineer's vote isn't just one opinion. It's weighted as a 9. It's a system that makes sure the most informed perspective is the one that guides the decision. And to really hardwire that pain plus reflection equals progress formula into the company's DNA, Dalio created something called the pain log. And listen, this is not a suggestion box. It's a mandatory protocol. When a painful mistake happens, you can't just brush it off and move on. No. Step 1, you stop and you document the error in the log in detail. Step 2, you analyze the root cause, not just what happened, but why it happened. What was the flawed thinking behind it? And step 3, which is the most important part, you synthesize a new principle from that analysis. You create a clear rule that will prevent you and anyone else in the company from making that exact same type of mistake again. It's literally a machine for turning failure into wisdom.
So, the big question, does all this actually work? I mean, this intense, systematic, sometimes brutally honest system, does attacking the ego and logging every single painful lesson, does it actually lead to better results? Well, the evidence is pretty overwhelming. The transformation of Bridgewater from a company about to go under to a financial empire is one of the most incredible stories out there.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It tells the entire story. You start in 1982, near bankruptcy, borrowing money from his dad. That is rock bottom. But then, by 1991, he's not just surviving, he's building. He starts writing down these hard-won lessons.
codifying them into the first version of the principles. You can see the system taking shape. And the result? By 2005, Bridgewater is the largest hedge fund in the world. And then in 2017, he publishes the whole system for all of us to see. This wasn't some lucky streak, this was the direct result of a machine built for relentless learning, a system that literally turned failure into fuel.
And the numbers, well, they speak for themselves. At its peak, Bridgewater was managing over $120 billion in assets. Just let that sink in for a second. $120 billion. That staggering number, it just quantifies the power of this whole philosophy. It wasn't built on gut feelings or some mysterious genius. It was built on a machine for making objective decisions. A machine that Dalio engineered piece by piece, starting from the ashes of his greatest failure.
So, okay, what does the story of a billionaire hedge fund manager have to do with you and me? Well, the beauty of the Ray Dalio Rule is that it's a universal operating system for growth. It's got nothing to do with finance, really. It's about confronting reality, getting over your ego, and evolving. It's a blueprint for literally anyone who wants to get better.
So how can you actually apply this like right now? Here's a simple action plan. First, divorce your identity from your beliefs. You are not your ideas. So when someone criticizes your idea, it's not an attack on you, it's a gift of feedback. Second, use pain as a signal. The next time you feel that sting of failure, don't get defensive, just stop and ask yourself, what is reality trying to teach me right now? Third, start your own pain log. Seriously, it can just be a simple notebook, but when you mess up, write it down, analyze why, and create a little principle to avoid it next time. And finally, start weighing opinions based on believability. When you ask for advice, don't just count opinions, weigh them. Listen more closely to the people who have a proven track record in what you're asking about.
In the end, the empire that Ray Dalio built stands on one profound truth. Your ego is the enemy of your success. The Ray Dalio Rule is the incredible story of how one catastrophic failure was transformed into a system of radical truth, proving that objective thinking is the ultimate competitive edge. And it's a system that leaves all of us with one powerful, immutable rule. If you don't evolve, you will be broken by the market. And that doesn't just apply to finance, it applies to life.